is a public service announcement. A bit of education for you all. How many of you out there have had your Range Rover L322 remapped? Probably a few of you by now. The cars are cheap enough that a lot of people can afford to buy them, run them, especially if you can maintain them yourself. Remapping, is it a good idea or is it not a good idea? Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Let's start with the original L322. It was two engines, was the TD6 and the 4.4 V. Let me put my teeth back in. There was the TD6, inline six-cylinder BMW diesel engine. There was the 4.4, which was the BMW V8 engine. Now the ZF gearbox, no, it wasn't a ZF, it was a GM. The GM gearbox in the TD6 was made out of cheese. Not hard cheese, cottage cheese. Soft. Squidgy. The TD6 was a 2.9 litre inline six BMW engine, and it put out, so they said, 177 horsepower, which gave a maximum torque of 390 newton metres. Now, the GM 5-speed gearbox that was fitted to it, they have torque ratings, maximum input torque. The torque rating for that particular gearbox was 340 newton metres. So that is 50 newton metres below what the engine can put out. Now, I don't know if gearbox manufacturers are a bit conservative in their estimations. So they'll say it's this, but it will handle X amount, because we'll get to that shortly. I would not remap a TD6 for all the tea in China. The gearbox buggers itself up in standard form. So if you're putting more power and more torque through that gearbox, it's just going to implode, isn't it? It's not going to happen. So my advice on that one is steer well clear. Don't touch that car if it's, got the GM 5-speed. I think the BMW V8, the 4.4, I can't remember if that was a GM or a ZF, because they did do a ZF 5-speed, but then the L322 got the TD V8 in 2006, and then it had the Jaguar V8 engine and it had the supercharged engine. Both the petrol engines, their gearboxes were pretty much on the limit for what the torque output of the engine was to the maximum torque for the gearbox. It comes to the TD V8, it's a 6-speed ZF gearbox, so it's a, what was it, a ZF6 HP26 in this car. From what I can work out, the gearbox in this car is rated at 600 newton metres. Now, in standard form, the TD V8, 3.6 litre, puts out 272 horsepower, 640 newton metres of torque. Now, I don't know, because if I was an engineer at Land Rover, I would say, hang on a minute, maximum torque for that gearbox is 600. Let's whack 640 newton metres through it, shall we? It just doesn't make sense to me. Are gearbox manufacturers a bit conservative in their estimates? When it comes to the 4.4 TDV8, it has the ZF 8-speed. Maximum input torque for that gearbox is 700 newton metres. Power output for the 4.4 is about 303 to 307 horsepower. 700 newton metres of torque. So that one is pretty much matched up to the gearbox, if the gearbox ratings are correct. This one is over by 40 newton metres. So this is a 2010 3.6 TDV8. We've had it remapped. It was a quantum tuning remap done by a local garage over at Charroux. They're sort of Land Rover specialists. Originally, I just wanted an EGR delete. This is going to be another divisive section. Should you remove your EGRs or not? My way of thinking, an engine will always run better on fresh air. It's like you. Are you going to run better on fresh air or breathing in your own farts? I know what you're going to say. So I said to them, I sent them an email, says, can you delete the EGR from the ECU, blah, blah. Yeah, he says €308. Okay, well, that's a lot of money. I said, how much? And he said, we can remap it at the same time. I said, well, how much for a remap as well? He said, €308. It's all in the same price. Okay. So anyway, I got them to fit a blanking kit and delete the EGR from the ECU. And they did a stage 1 remap, which took this from 272 horsepower up to 310. And it took it from 640 newton meters to 750 newton meters, which is quite a big increase, but slightly concerning if the gearbox is only rated for 600 newton meters. Now, I looked on the Quantum Tuning website. The stage 1 remap for a 4.4 TDV8 takes it from 303 horsepower to 375, 700 newton meters of torque, all the way up to 800 newton meters of torque. So they've gone 100 newton meters over the gearbox limit. We've gone 150 over. But what I can't work out is I've been on the ZF, I've done some searching for the ZF 6-speed in this. There's a ZF, the HP26, which was superseded by the HP28 around about 2010. That was then 700 newton meters of torque. Then there was the HP32, which I think was used in certain cars. It doesn't specify Land Rover. The HP32 was rated at 750 newton meters of torque. Now that gearbox in the 4.4 TDV8 is rated for 700 newton meters of torque, but it is the same gearbox that's fitted in quite a few cars, like from the BMW range through the Rolls-Royce, Bentleys. I believe there's a Lamborghini that's got that gearbox in it. That gearbox can take 1,000 horsepower, but I don't know how they do it, whether it's they put a different torque converter in it or there's other things they change. So the gearbox is capable, but not in the application it's in a Land Rover. The one that's fitted to Land Rover is 700 newton meters. So that takes us back to, oh my God, my gearbox is going to explode. But how many people, unless you've got a really heavy right foot, are ever going to see maximum torque out of your engine? A lot of these Range Rovers are that are coming up on YouTube, that people have bought them cheap. They've done a lot of miles, a lot of miles. Sam's has done over 200,000 miles. Are those engines going to be putting out the amount of torque that they should do? Probably not. So I'm not too concerned with this car. This is low mileage. We've done, well, when I put it onto miles, I changed the speed thing from kilometres to miles the other day to see what it was. 87,000 miles this has done, so nothing really. It's not even come up to 100,000 yet. The way we drive the car, we're like Darby and Joan. Occasionally, when we get out on the motorway, if we want to overtake something, but you're not putting a lot of... If you're overtaking, you're already moving, you put your foot down, you're not putting massive amount of strain on your gearbox overtaking while you're already moving. It's standing starts and all that kind of thing. So for us, the benefits of having it remapped, the extra fuel economy, the extra throttle response, you get the extra throttle response from your EGRs being deleted because your turbos are going to spool up quicker. That outweighs any worries of damaging the gearbox, because we just don't drive this car hard. If we're towing anything, it's 750 kilos. Well, that's what our trailer's rated for. We never fill it right up. You know, you don't even notice the trailer's on the back. So I'm not too worried about that. But if you've got an old Range Rover with 200,000 plus miles on it, with a sort of slightly tired gearbox, is it a good idea to have it remapped? I'll let you decide that one. You take your choice. You make your choices and you take your chances. I'm not saying one way or the other what to do. Is it a good idea? Who knows? I would recommend, if you're going to remap your car, is to keep your gearbox well serviced. I've got that to do on this car in the coming weeks. I've got a few jobs to do. The Panda's going to be coming out of the garage. My dad's car's going in. We've got some jobs to do on that. And then while the garage is empty, I might get this in and we'll do the gearbox service, and I should bring you along. So yeah, if you're going to have it remapped, keep well on top of your maintenance. That's all I can say. We're going back to our gearbox manufacturers, very conservative with their maximum torque ratings. I don't know. You're not get a straight answer out of any of them. They'll just say, oh no, you need to leave your car as standard. It's like, bollocks. Yes, and your EGRs, that's another story. You're going to get people on both sides of the fence. Oh, you need it for your emissions, this, that and the other. And, oh, you're going to, your Greta Thunbergs and all that lot. And then you've got your people like, your engine is so much better for not having an EGR valve. I mean, we could do this as a separate video, EGR valves, the pros and cons of deleting them, removing them, blocking them, blanking them, whatever. Your engine is going to just be so much cleaner. It's not circulating crap. The emissions on this car, every time it goes for a control technique, are unbelievably clean. They are spotless. There's, you know, you do get a puff of smoke out when you really boot it, but on the emissions test there's nothing. It is absolutely spotless. So yeah, that'll be another video if people are going to start hammering the comments for that one. We'll do a pros and cons on the EGR valves. But yeah, so this was just a bit of an educational video today. The whys and wherefores of remapping your car. I say it made such a difference on this car. When we went from the TD6 to the TD-V8, it was a night and day difference. The cars, I mean, that was a 2002, this is a 2010, so they're only 8 years apart, but they were so different, you know, in the way that they were, the way they drove and everything, and it was just amazing. Then we had the remap and the EGR delete done, and it wasn't the night and day difference it was from the TD6 to the TD-V8, but it was such a big difference. Throttle response, you know, you accelerate and it goes through the gears smooth, and it is just so, not unbelievable, because, you know, it is believable. You've altered all the maps and this, that and the other, but it made such a big difference, and to the fuel economy as well. Then you say, well, what, the manufacturers have it set for a certain reason. The manufacturers set the maps in the ECU. There's so many different maps for different things. You've got boost pressures, injection, duration, how long your injectors are open for, this, that and the other. And the manufacturers have a base map for the whole range of cars for everywhere in the world where they sell the car. So you've got people sort of taking these cars to the Arctic Circle. You've got people taking them into the desert. So you're going from like -40 to +50. This is Celsius. I'm sorry to all you over in the States. I can't be doing with Fahrenheit. It's so much easier. Celsius. 0 is freezing. Plus or minus. It's simples. But manufacturers have to have it set so that for such a wide, broad spectrum, that it's not always the most efficient map for the engine. They've got to take into account for poor servicing routines. They've got to take into account for countries with poor fuel. So they have a base level map, and it just covers the whole range of cars for all over the world. So if you're like living here in France or the UK, we don't get extreme weathers. You know, summer we get +40 for about a week of the year, and we might get down to -10 in the winter. When it's that cold, we don't drive the car because we're not going out in that sort of temperature. And when it's that hot, we don't go out in the car. But the map has been optimised for the engine, basically. I mean, ideally, it's going to be best to have it on a rolling road, and you set the map up on the rolling road throughout the rev range. Whether that's been done the first time, you know, all these tuning companies, whether the first one was done on a rolling road and they just sort of use that as a base map, and that's your stage 1 map, and then that's what everybody else gets. Obviously, each car is slightly different, so each car, it would benefit putting on a rolling road and having the map set properly. But that's going to cost money, isn't it? So just having a remap whacked into your car is going to make such a big difference. But bear in mind that dodgy old gearbox. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. You might have learnt something. You might not. If you're that way inclined and you've got a high mileage car, you're going to do it anyway. I'm just putting the word out there. You might destroy your gearbox or the rest of your drivetrain. Who knows? Yeah, so be careful. Anyway, please give a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.